People think that if you rarely go out, something must be wrong with you. They call it antisocial, lazy, depressed. But what if staying home isn't avoidance? What if it's regulation? Some people don't stay home because they hate the world. They stay home because the world feels overwhelming, draining, or simply unnecessary. Today, we're breaking down the real psychology behind people who prefer staying home and why it might say more about their depth than their weakness. First, let's talk about those who stay home because they've been too strong for too long. Imagine a rubber band being pulled and pulled without ever being let go. Eventually, it loses its elasticity or it snaps. These are people who used to be the yes person, the one who always showed up, the one who listened to everyone's problems, the one who worked the hardest. But they learned that the world can be harsh. In psychology, this phase is called emotional decompression. Home is their sanctuary, where they can finally stop performing. They don't have to win, they don't have to explain, they just need to breathe. Like a sea that has stopped waving, not because it lost its power, but because it finally found its depth. Then there's the true introvert. Contrary to popular belief, they aren't necessarily shy or afraid of people. They just process the world differently. Think of their social energy like a phone battery. For extroverts, being around people is like being plugged into a charger. But for introverts, every conversation, every small talk, every crowded room is an app that drains their battery. By the end of the day, they're at 1%. Home is their only charging port. Solitude isn't a punishment for them, it's a luxury. It's the time when the world stops shouting and they can finally hear their own thoughts again. They aren't avoiding life, they're recharging so they can face it again tomorrow. Third, we have the creatives and deep thinkers. For them, home isn't a place to hide, it's a laboratory. From the outside, it looks like they're doing nothing, but inside, a whole universe is being built. They're like deep-sea divers. Most people are happy swimming on the surface, where it's bright and busy. But these individuals dive where the light fades and the silence is absolute. Why? Because that's where the pearls are. They need the silence to connect the dots, to write that story, to paint that canvas, or to understand a complex truth about life. They don't run from the world, they stay still so they can understand the world more deeply than anyone else. There's also the highly sensitive person, or HSP. Their nervous system is tuned to a higher frequency. A loud car, a bright fluorescent light, or a chaotic office isn't just annoying, it's physically overwhelming. Imagine living in a world where the volume is always set to 100. At home, they have the remote control. They can dim the lights, choose the silence, and let their senses rest. This isn't a weakness, it's actually why they're often the most empathetic people you'll meet. Because they feel the world's harshness so deeply, they also feel its beauty more intensely. Home is where they go to keep that beauty from being crushed by the noise. And finally, some people stay home simply because they chose to step out of hustle culture. They realize that being busy isn't the same as being fulfilled. They don't measure life by how many events they attend. They find meaning in slower moments, reading, thinking, creating, resting. It's not fear, it's intentional living. Now, here's something important. Preferring to stay home is different from being trapped by fear. If someone avoids the world because of severe anxiety, trauma, or depression, that's something that deserves support. But choosing solitude for recovery, clarity, or peace, that's not dysfunction, that's self-awareness. What unites all these types? One simple truth. They want a space where they can be themselves. No masks, no pressure, no expectations. If you are one of these people, don't let the world make you feel guilty for loving your home. You aren't missing out on life. you're experiencing life in its purest, quietest form. Because at the end of the day, the greatest journey isn't always across the globe. Sometimes, the most important journey is the one you take within yourself, in the safety of your own home.